Sonic Superstars arrives on the Switch, and I've been excited for this one for a while, something I don't get to say all of that often about our favourite Blue Hedgehog. Just a fantastic character that has, unfortunately over the years, had more misses than hits, but it's been great to see the recent uphill trajectory. My name's Alex, this is SwitchCorner, and if you enjoy this video, subscribe, it helps out the channel a huge amount. Also, you can check out the in-depth written review over at xpcorner.net. Story is, as expected, minimal. We once again see the return of Dr. Eggman, and this time accompanied by Fang, and they are out to convert the Northstar Islands wildlife into Badniks, robotic enemies out to do their bidding. It's really the extent of it. There's some fun, though brief, cutscenes to push things forward, and attacking enemies is accompanied by an animation seeing these animals escape, which I did appreciate. Now let's talk about the gameplay. It's classic 2D Sonic with a dash of creativity, clearly influenced by Sonic Mania, and it brings a few new tricks to the table. Now, is it the greatest Sonic game many of us had hoped for? I'd say it's not quite there, but it is far from bad. Now, when we do dive into the story mode, it's very much as you would expect. You get to choose one of 4 playable characters, and you progress through several worlds, each comprised of 2 acts each. The game starts somewhat in a classic way with a location reminiscent of Green Hills, but it quickly evolves to add its own style. Now, the playable characters include Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. While the controls remain largely the same between them, each character brings a unique trait to the table, so Knuckles can wall climb, Amy can double jump, and Tails can briefly fly. Personally, I stuck with Sonic for the most part, as he's always been my go-to character. Now, once you do beat the game as well for the first time, that's going to take you roughly 4 hours, you will unlock Trip, a new addition to the cast. So these are all abilities we've seen before. Where Sonic Superstars aims to mix things up is with its new Chaos Emerald abilities. These can only be activated once per checkpoint, and checkpoints they are pretty frequent. Now, the abilities include turning Sonic into water, transforming him into a fireball, or even cloning him for an all-out attack. They are a fun addition that I use sparingly, but the game can be played with or without them if you prefer. They really came in handy though for a few of the boss encounters, even if this game did feel, I'd say, a little easier compared to many 2D Sonic entries. Level design then is perhaps the most crucial element of any Sonic entry, and I'll add that the speed here feels perfect. I'd say the majority of levels here are well done, featuring multiple branching pathways and various objects to interact with, from locations that reverse gravity to classic throwbacks to pinball style encounters to a brief section where you're falling from the sky. Basically, what I'm saying is the variety is consistent. However, I do have a but here. Toward the end game, I think it gets a little too complicated for its own good, and at times you may question if you're heading in the right direction. Additionally, this design renders the local multiplayer near useless. For some unknown reason, they've gone with the classic approach of a single camera that focuses on the leading character, so you can't go off screen. If you do, it is death. Now though, here with multiple paths this often, in typical Sonic fashion, these kind of different pathways pull you in different directions and can lead to you losing track of each other. This entry desperately needs a patch that adds a split screen option to make this multiplayer more manageable. Now let's talk about what I didn't particularly like in this entry. There are a few bonus locations and a challenge to earn the Chaos Emerald powers. The Chaos Emerald section is always the same, involving the use of a grappling hook to capture the emerald. It's honestly pretty dull as far as gameplay elements go. As for the mini bonus sections where you collect rings while falling or navigate a pinball maze, they just feel, if anything, a little uninspired and basic, even if the pinball is a nice throwback. Now moving beyond the story mode, then we have Time Trial, where you try to beat these levels within a specific time frame, and then there's also the Battle mode. Now I must admit, I'm not particularly impressed with this mode at all. It offers basic minigames and nothing that's going to keep you coming back in the long term. They might be fun for about 15 minutes at a time, but that's really about as far as they will go. The minigames include activities like sapping each other with electricity and collecting up stars, but they are as underwhelming as they sound. I think it's fair to call it a good Sonic game, honestly, but I do want to address some other issues I face. The boss encounters are great fun, but a few of them are extended into multiple acts, and they do get a little boring. We've gone from the classic kind of 3 hits and they're down formula, which still does appear here, to those that now take 6 to 9 hits. I know that might sound a little silly, but they lost some of their magic with that extra time, and I just kind of, I guess, wanted them to be over. I did then experience a hard crash on the final level, specifically during a cutscene. Now fortunately here no progress was lost, but it occurred after only about an hour of gameplay, so it wasn't an extended period that can sometimes cause an issue. I also noticed some frame rate fluctuations. The game is targeting 60 FPS, and that is, I'd say, largely the case during the opening hour or so, but it slowly does drop, and I had a few sections that were jumping between 50 and 60. Now, wouldn't say it caused me any issues, it's just something that will be noticeable. Lastly, I encountered 3 or 4 deaths that appeared to be glitch related. For example, I was on a falling block standing next to a wall, and it seemed like the game registered that wall as crushing me, leading to an instant death. Now, as with any Sonic game, rings mean life. If you get hit, you have an opportunity to collect them back up. However, in these instances, that opportunity was taken away, because if you get crushed or fall into a bottomless pit in Sonic, it is instant death and back to that last checkpoint. Finally, we need to address the price point. The game offers a couple of modes and some mini-games, but at $59.99 or your regional equivalent, seems like a bit of a stretch in my opinion for what you are getting. Although there is a reason to replay the main story, it is still only 4 hours long. It just feels light on content. For me, for example, I didn't get all of the Emerald power-ups, and I haven't unlocked the secret ending yet, which requires me to get all Chaos Emeralds and beat the game with Trip, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to pull me back in. Visually, I'm quite impressed. There's a noticeable downgrade with the Switch build as expected, especially on the main menu where characters display a heavy amount of pixelation. However, in the actual game, I think it looks good. There's a constant variety in the designs of the main story. Each location offers something unique. And then yeah, there's some nice little deserved nods, I guess, to classic moments from the series. Then as well, there's going to be things like new additions, locations that transition Sonic into a retro 3D styled form, for example, was an absolute highlight. The animations then are as good as ever, and the cutscenes, though brief, they pack enough charm to keep you engaged. The only visual aspect I didn't like was then during the battle mode. If you play single player against bots, every single player is identical, a robot. This makes it incredibly difficult to understand what is going on. Now, for you, the player character, you can change your avatar, but not your opponents. I'd like to see them patching some variety here, just so we can distinguish the different players involved. To finish on a positive, however, Trip looks great, and I hope to see the character return in the future. Alright, let's talk about the audio, and it's great stuff. There's no voice acting, which can make the cutscenes feel a little vacant at times from an audio perspective. However, the music is fantastic, and the sound effects for movement, attacks, collecting rings, they're exactly as you would expect. This is a soundtrack I'll be listening to offline, and I'm hopeful that it sees some sort of physical standalone release, because I think it truly deserves it. So overall, Sonic Superstars isn't quite the revelation I had hoped for. While it does have some good ideas, there are also a few areas where, in my opinion, the implementation falls short. This includes the lack of variety in some of the story mode games, the limited multiplayer options, and then also, of course, the absence of split screen. That being said, when playing solo, I still had a lot of fun with it. The levels are well designed, Sonic Mania's influence on the series is evident in all the right ways, and the cast remains as fun as ever. Taking all of this into consideration today, I'm giving it a good 7 out of 10. However, it's worth noting that it's priced at $59.99. You'll get roughly 4 hours of gameplay from a single run, so if you're not someone who replays games, you may want to wait for a sale. So will you be checking out Sonic Superstars? Let us know in the comments. With that, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, news and lists daily, and I'll see you all next video. Thanks everyone.